Hey everybody, I'm Jody-Vance,
And I'm George-Affleck.
and we are going to talk about federal politics in Canada. We got some flippy floppy tariff action from Mr. Trump, the President of the United States. We're drinking from that fire hose, and we'll bring it all back local and ask the question of how that by-election was so poorly run out here on
UnSpun. Okay, well, gosh.
How are we going to do this in 30 minutes, George? Oh, we got to set the timer. Got to set the
Well,
timer
I
for
just,
30 minutes. We don't have time for this. Okay, let's start with
I haven't checked the news today. Have we flipped again? Have we flip-flopped again?
let's not start with Trump. Let's go
Okay.
federal politics because we are
Okay.
I got my little voter's card. I
Yep.
don't think I've been quite so excited about making sure that I vote. And there have been some really important elections in my lifetime in this country. But for whatever reason, George, is it just this feeling of that's got us all like we are going to vote on this April 28th. We're taking our card and we maybe are standing in line and we don't care. We're going to do it. What's the feeling from your
Well,
political
I,
perspective?
I'm in Heady Fries riding, so not a lot of excitement.
Right.
You
You're
know,
like, check.
it's like, well, it's also like, really? She's still running?
Yeah.
That's a general consensus of most of the people in my neighborhood about Hetty Fry. It's like, really? Because she doesn't do a lot for us, in my riding, to be honest. So,
Right.
so,
But she'll win.
well, who knows? But I just think
It
there is definitely excitement. I got my voting cards. I have to go vote early. A friend of mine, because I'm going to be away
right, because you're
during,
traveling.
I'm
That's right.
traveling. And actually, a
Yeah.
friend went there, and I didn't know you did this. He went and voted yesterday, and he had to go to the elections office because it's so early. They don't have ballots printed, so you have to actually write the name down, and they don't actually have the name anywhere. And so you have to actually know the person's name that you're voting for, how to spell it, which sometimes maybe you don't know how to spell the person's name.
Hmm.
Quite so it's a write-in ballot. So I said, why didn't you put my name in?
Interesting. I would just put George,
It's
George
George got one vote.
underscore George_Affleck. But
Yeah.
okay, so seriously though, what are we seeing happen? I mean, there's a lot of brouhaha right now, and there are people that maybe like are completely checked out of this because we're so busy watching what's happening in the US and how it's impacting us and whatever. But
Mhm.
the even on vacation, I saw how the Conservative Party are not allowing media to ride the bus, ride the plane, da da da. They have to figure out where they're going, get there, and then be corralled into a little spot. It's very Trumpy because it is. It's one of the things that Donald Trump did was like to corral the media over there and be able to point to them and say you're fake news or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, there was a little bit of that, and there was even a kerfuffle or a um, I don't know, is kerfuffle the right word? There was even the way I read it was that there was an almost throwdown between a media member and one of the conservative wranglers who was like, "Get over there in your spot," and the media member was like, "Stop telling me what to do. I'm sorry, this is Canada, and I can stand over here if I want to." They weren't currently filming; it wasn't during the event or whatnot, but it almost came to blows. I'm like, what is happening
Well, you
when
see
you
some of the
have to
data.
control?
I know,
Go
and you
ahead.
see some of the data with the number of questions that Polyev takes versus the other candidates, which is much less controlled. It doesn't like taking questions from CBC, so which says something. It's interesting, and we've talked about this before, and I tell you that time when I was running in 2014 with Kirk LaPointe, he did a
Yeah.
press conference. He became across as a bit arrogant with Frances Beulah, who he used to be his boss, her boss. So there's probably too
Right.
much familiarity there. But in any event, everybody got this like, oh, what's happening? And immediately you could see the tide turn against him.
Right.
And you can't say it wasn't a conscious thing, but
Mm.
media actually have a big part to play. And we're media in a way. We still work and I still do kind of journalism, more opinion
We do. I saw you
journalism,
on
but
Global.
that's right.
I saw you
That's
on
right. I
Global.
have
We'll get to that
and
in a minute.
CTV.
Yeah. Yeah. And CTV. There
Suddenly,
you
yeah, we'll
go.
get to that in a minute. So it's interesting. You shouldn't underestimate the power of media. I don't care if it's, mainstream media or digital media. When the tide turns against you, there is this unconscious movement. It's not, they don't sit there and go, let's get them. But there is this like, hey,
No.
hey, jerk, like, come on.
Yeah.
And so they become more skeptical, or they start digging deeper, or they're like, whatever it might be. But don't do that. I mean, it just works against you. And I see Polyev sometimes, and he's like, he does that. Remember that Apple thing he did, which was very successful,
Totally.
which worked. But now he kind
Yeah.
of has that Apple move all the time, and that
All the
comes with
time. It won't work.
doesn't work all the time. You
No.
can't play that
So
game.
to your point with uh, the leader of the official opposition, Pierre
Mm.
Poilievre, he was refusing to take a follow-up question from a CTV reporter who was lobbing the question from the little, you know, corral that they're in 30 feet away from Poilievre when he's on the stage, whatever. And they were taking a question from the phone line that was in French, blah, blah, blah. But this CTV reporter was doing the follow up because she did not get the answer to the question originally. And she's like, wait a minute, what I'm actually asking you is da 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 da. And Poilievre actually said, I'm being interrupted by a protester, called that media member a protester while I'm trying to take this. And I watched this video of him do that. And I thought, I mean,
Mhm.
you can't handle it? Is that what you're doing? You can't manage it? Are they getting under your skin now? Because that Apple thing was him being like, this is a stupid question. Do you ask everybody these stupid questions? You're just a stupid journalist. Chomp, chomp, right? It was very performative.
Yeah.
But this was very, I don't know, aggressive is the word. I don't know.
I think, yeah, right now, I don't, I'm this whole anti-journalism, anti-media, fake news thing. I feel like a bit of it's run its course a little bit, that it's not, and I think that he's basing his tone on old news, on old attitudes, that I feel like what Trump has done has
Right.
created maybe a new movement, certainly on the center, where that mushy middle that we talk about, which you need to win in Canada and Vancouver and so many other markets, maybe not in Alberta. Um,
Maybe not in Alberta or Saskatchewan,
and
but
that's, yeah, his mindset maybe is too Alberta still. We talked about that last time, that his mindset's too Alberta. He's too focused on his base, and he's got to get that mushy middle. And generally, the mushy middle, who are usually high educated, and they actually still believe in journalism and listen to CBC and watch CBC. Well, nobody watches CBC, but listen to CBC. And
do.
okay, maybe the
I love
national.
Ian Hanaman saying he's
Okay, Ian
great.
Handsome Man thing and the national, but a news
Did
world,
you just
whatever it's
call him
called now,
handsome man thing?
Handsome Man thing, yeah. Um,
Eon.
yeah, but that's what he used to be. That was his nickname. I didn't
It
make it
it
up.
very much is his nickname. I'm just taking the piss out of you, George.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
are
So
you ready for your
I think that
vacation? Yeah.
I think that anti-media movement that Polyev is still playing on, I think it's over. I
Yeah,
hope
I
it's
think
over
so
too,
too.
because I hate that shit. I mean, come on.
Most people hate that shit. Most people do. I got to tell you, like I don't know if you can if you're watching this, you can see that I kind of have a little bit of a tan. If you can look around, this is my usual, not my usual environment. I am not at home. In fact, I'm in the United States. My parents own a property in the US. We had planned to come down here with the family. Got to check on the property. It's an insurance thing. You got to do it, blah, blah, blah. And it's a vacation. And boy, can I tell you, George, flying in here, going through customs, the US Border Security Customs agent said, welcome. Thank you for coming. They are
in
putting
in where you are,
in
or in Vancouver.
it was coming through Vancouver, which
Yeah.
was a total breeze because nobody's coming here. And I probably won't be going to the US much in future. This is kind of the like, oh, and I was worried. You and I talked about it.
Yeah.
We say some pretty opinionated things on this
Yeah.
podcast and on radio and television, whatever. We share our
There
opinions.
is a record of your opinions, Jody.
Yeah.
I
But
don't
what
have any opinions.
shocks me, and this speaks to your like popularity, to your point about popularity in trashing the media or calling us fake news or whatever. The majority of people don't believe that. And the majority of people are looking at Canadians now in the US and going, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like they're literally putting up banners on street posts with the Canadian flag on it saying, we love you. Please come back. Like
This
there's
is
the majority, we hear about the noisy people who are like, screw them, they've been screwing us over long enough, whatever the sound bite that makes
yeah.
the fill in the blank cable news outlet that we watch all too much of. I'm totally unplugged from that down here, which I love. But the feeling on the ground, the feeling in the space, and and hearing from Americans, they're absolutely appalled at what's going on. And I think that the majority of Canadians are appalled at those who are screaming defund the CBC at the top of their lungs. To that point, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister currently, and I mean, obviously we're in an election, so he's not technically, I mean, is he? Isn't he? What are we doing?
He's the
But
leader of the Liberals, yeah.
he is the leader of the Liberals and positioned to, if you believe polling, to become the next elected Prime Minister of Canada, is saying emphatically that not only will he not defund the CBC, he's going to inject more into making sure that we have a free and honest press. And you and I both worked at the CBC. We're not paid by the government. We're not paid, you know, all that garbage that we hear all the time.
Nobody tells
It
you what
is
to do. Yeah, nobody tells you what to do.
it
Yeah.
is ethical. In fact, they sweat you not being told what to do and making sure that you say it in a way that is exactly sourced, resourced, double checked, quadruple checked, and possibly lawyered before it gets out onto the airwaves. And so, you know, to your point, I think that I hope that ship has sailed, that calling media members the enemy of the people or whatever goes away quickly. And the man who really sparked all of that, I think we do get to the Trumpiness of this. Where are we, George? Like, I'm trying to follow the
Jumping to Trump.
tariffs.
Yeah, no, and I think the journalism was part of that. I mean, because back, just a quick backtrack on that, you know, I think community journalism is really important. And I hope CBC can understand that to better local journalism. And I think the funding for community journalism that comes through Facebook's or through Google's campaign, 170 million. That's a big discussion that has to come in Canada. But I think
Yeah.
we have to remember that we need to keep supporting local journalism that's independent,
Local.
whatever that might be, whether it's CBC, but independent thinking and independent quality journalism is key to democracy. And you know, you can see, yeah, with Trump, what's going on, and he's still pushing hard. He's you know, he's threatening judges and lawyers, and now the governor of California saying he's going to potentially about the export of coal from it's not allowed in California.
California.
He's going to push against that and see if and this is like a he's just like it's quite scary, which by the way would affect Vancouver because our port takes all the dirty coal from America and exports it here for them. So just a little FYI to Vancouverites.
That's what the super port is.
That's why we make
That's the
out of
super port.
Surrey, we make so much money off American dirty coal. So that might
Yeah.
impact us negatively. Yeah, I don't know this flip flop. I mean, it's not a surprise, but it's also like seriously, like this is insane. Like the back and
So
forth,
let's
up
explain
and
it.
down.
Let's explain it. So on a week ago, that
Yes.
feels like 2 years ago, we're only 73 days into this presidency. We got a long way to go here. So we have to like
Yeah.
conserve our energy. The Dow, the NASDAQ, the bond markets, like the spiral that the people who are in the know about will make countless amounts of money. And there's no doubt that there are people getting the nod because that's how everything drops. Everybody sells and then everybody buys. And then you buy the dip and you do that. It's just market manipulation. It's so obvious. But with so much Doge, you know, what's it called? The chainsaw, the Elon Musk chainsaw of whatever. Everybody's just so upended. However, the world markets are undeniable. Donald Trump does not control the world, and world leaders, he expected them to fall into line because he has that mindset that I am the center of the universe. Fine, believe that. It's actually comforting in this time of unbelievable chaos and turmoil that good world leaders are saying, okay, what's plan B if we can't trust American politicians, if we can't trust that they're the foundational base of democracy on the global scale, the people that really, or the country that created it, the stability, the superpower. Now what happens? And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think we'll continue to talk about it moving forward. I think we were complacent globally as like, well, America's the thing, and we just all kind of do this with that because there are no guarantees. So Donald Trump throws down the tariffs, and Canada and Mexico actually skate by with not as much as we feared would happen. Certainly the auto industry was impacted, softwood lumber
Steel, aluminum.
impacting, yeah,
Mm.
aluminum, impacting BC, impacting Ontario. So, our leaders needing to step up in that regard, and Mark Carney stepping in and saying, hey, if you continue to call us the 51st state and call me governor, I'm not even talking to you. So that I actually found to be an excellent marker, because Carney held to that, and Trump ended up calling him, or his people did. He, of course, said that Mark Carney called him, but whatever. Doesn't matter. That's the sparkly thing. The fact that Carney held out for that conversation, then Donald Trump posted about their discussion without using the 51st state, which we haven't heard a lot about that since, and did not call him governor, which he has not done since. I think we're starting to see that when you stand up to the bully, you can make significant moves, which takes us to the bond market last night. So the bond market last night, tumbling. Like, people are like, what? Or it was
Last night or
the night before?
2 nights ago.
It was 2 nights ago. Thank you. Sorry. And literally the left hand didn't know what the right hand was saying. Like, it was just, it's chaos. But that's when it's a 90-day moratorium on tariffs from US President Donald Trump, with the exception of China.
And Canada.
And Canada.
Because we still have all those tariffs that you mentioned, right. which is, of course, politically happening, is that the Conservatives are saying, see, this is what Carney gets you. If he hadn't done such a bad job before the election call, we wouldn't have any tariffs. But instead, our moves, our decisions, and is the reason that Trump said, okay, well, then you could keep these bad tariffs. So we still have, and that's not being mentioned anywhere in the media outside of Canada, which I find interesting. Everybody's saying all the world's tariffs are gone away. And I'm like, oh, hey, oh, he.
I did hear it. I did hear it on US media last night.
Yeah,
I did.
Okay.
And it was also mentioned. I wish I could remember the commentator's name, because he took it on directly. I watched this 7-minute snippet that was on my. I'm like, okay, I got to catch up. I got to talk to George tomorrow. And it was about the question. It was on Abby Phillips' show, where they have the two sides like very close to one another, yelling at each other often, unchecked.
Yeah.
Scott Jennings hilariously trying to pivot around.
He's gone way beyond.
It was all part of the plan.
He's beyond what he used to be. I used to actually kind of like his opinion. Now he's gone a bit cuckoo.
Yeah, he's gone full MAGA. Yeah,
he's
for sure.
Full MAGA.
It's wild watching him, and he even looks like he's sweating a little bit at trying to find a way to pivot around. But it's the British commentator. God, I wish I knew his name off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I should.
That New Year's Eve guy, the one that does.
Yeah, that was dressed like the Statue of Liberty, or the Chrysler Building. Very funny. He said, and he goes, I'm going to directly ask my good friend Scott Jennings this. Why didn't President Trump say, I'm going to institute all of these tariffs with that big board that he had last week? I'm going to do all of these in 90 days. Come negotiate with me. Instead of tariffs are on, and then cause chaos, cause the markets, and then say, okay, now come, I'll put a moratorium on, now come and negotiate with me. It seemed backwards. And Scott Jennings had a way of kind of like, well, I think this is part of the plan. He's like, he's proven that he would do it. I think that was the summary of what Scott said, was he's proving that he would do it, which is
tying himself in knots. Tying him in
exactly. But that's the thing. And George, you can tell me politically, you are so knowledgeable and experienced in dealing with campaigns and whatnot. Yeah, well, you are. Like, how would anyone, anywhere, ever trust that the US president is going to stick to any deal he makes at any time?
Like, you can't. There's no possible way. There's no.
It's over.
It's all a grift. It's all a grift. There's, sure, he's playing 5-dimensional, 8-dimensional chess, but really he's just extorting us. He's just extorting everybody.
Yeah.
Whether it be the Canada or Europe or the judges or California or universities, or this is his job. He sees his job as basically
break things.
Yeah, break things, but then use it as a tool to get what he wants for whatever his goal is, which God knows what that goal is. I mean, it's very questionable about what his goals are. Some say it's authoritarianism, some it's just make himself rich, some lots of theories on what he's doing. I sometimes think he doesn't even know what he's doing. He's just kind of doing what he's doing, and he just finds it
Yeah, I think
fun.
that's true.
I don't
I
think
don't
there's
even know that
plan.
there's specific malice in like I want like when people are like he's a Russian asset. Um, I think he just loves being the center of attention.
How could the Russians
And
trust
if
him? He must be just as unpredictable to them as he is to us. So,
must
why
be.
would, how can you trust an asset that you can't predict? I mean, that's not an asset. That's a liability. So I don't, the whole asset thing seems unlikely, but he certainly has a passion for Russia and has a respect for any
And
authoritarian
North
leadership.
Korea,
But
and he used to love China. He used to love President Xi.
Politicians, you
Yeah,
get into anybody who gets into politics quite often think, oh God, if I could only just make decisions like in the business world, like it's like
you
because
can't.
you can't. It's consensus. It's not only consensus potentially within your own caucus, like we saw here in BC, what happened when a consent when a and we'll talk a bit about that later. But when you fall
Yeah,
apart behind the scenes, you fall apart as a government. You can't get consensus within your own party. You're screwed, and it's really hard to get consensus in government, especially
right.
if the votes are as they are in the United States, so tight. And in Canada, generally, our elections federally are always, and provincially now, are so tight between, the way, so you're always having to find consensus and walk the floor and work the room and whatever. So, but
Yeah,
that's why politicians, when they get in for the first time, like, oh my God, if only we could just do it without this. And that's
yeah.
Trump's brain. It's like, if only we could live with, and that's called authoritarianism. So,
Right, which
you
is
know,
why he's got, the House and the Senate basically in his back pocket because they're all so afraid of being primaried, right? That's
mhm.
the thing that I'm waiting for. Like, where are the good Republicans? When I saw yesterday, I was scrolling my social media, um, and I saw Rand Paul, of all people, like this man
Yeah.
who is consistently spewed the most ridiculous MAGA, extreme right chaos making stuff, actually said something that I was like, oh my
I
God,
know. I
he's
know.
in there.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's funny
wow.
because he has been kind of crazy, but he used to be. I used to like him like years ago, and then he went a bit crazy, and now he's saying, "Yeah, it'll be normal again" or something. I don't know. It's
I
can't
think
predict that guy.
Republicans are now starting to find it hard to stomach that it's so like
They
you're
have savings
actually
too. They have their whatever they call them in the States. They have
401k.
they
Yeah.
have their and they've seen a 30% drop in 2 weeks on their lifetime savings. So although
And some
yesterday,
people, oh yeah,
but yesterday, a lot of them, as you said, and they have already exposed some of them, put their money into because politicians have to declare all their investments, right? So
yeah,
unless Trump stops that, which I wouldn't see, we could see that happening. You can see where they put their money. If they
yeah.
manage, that's called insider trading. Although Trump's saying because he put it on a public platform, buy now. Now is a great time to buy, which was, a note to his buddies. When I put this tweet out, make sure you've already bought. You
You've
know,
already done it.
you've
Yeah.
already done
I'm
it.
telling the people, oh
Hmm.
my gosh. So I do along those same lines, the people that this is all going to hurt the most are the people that need to access their retirement funds now. Like there are a lot of people that it's like if you just leave it there, I mean, there's
People
going to
my
be
age.
correction and da 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 da. But the boomers need it. And that's the largest chunk of the population right now. We are in
And they
that
vote.
boom, bust, and echo, and they vote. That's
Hmm.
right. It's like, oh man. And there are people who were living paycheck to paycheck, especially in the United States, because tariff is a tax. They are the big story in the United States, being in it right now, is how much more the average household will pay per year without changing anything.
Hmm.
Whatever you're doing right now, it is now going to cost you at minimum $2,100 more a year, likely closer to $5,000 more a year. And this is for people who might be making $30,000 a year or less, right? It's it's going to really, 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 really hurt some people who
And the
have
China one
already
alone,
have nothing. Yeah.
and the
Oh
tariff
yeah.
alone, just for small business, you see there are so many. You see them all the time now on TikTok. These independent contractors, people who are like work from home, like kind of people like you, me, but they've decided to
Yeah.
move. They have their own business. They're solopreneurs. They're selling a product line that's being very successful. They've made themselves famous on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and suddenly they're paying 700 million% more on their tariffs. So
Wild.
$300,000 is now $600,000 or whatever, and they're like, I am out of business. So there are
I'm just out of business.
thousands of people like that that he's putting out of
Yeah.
business who are making a good
And
income,
Donald Trump
spending
says
money
he
and
makes,
buying cars and doing all
yeah,
these things, and they're gone. They're out.
he says
Crazy.
he makes money on bad economies, though. He likes to buy the businesses that are going under. That was something that he said the other day.
Oh
Let's
my
talk a
God.
little bit about local stuff. We want to talk about the by-election in Vancouver. Oh, before
Mm.
we get there, let's mention the fact that Corinne Kirkpatrick um, is making an announcement today about starting a new party in British Columbia called Centre BC. What do you think about Centre BC?
Well, it's interesting because I had bought a name. I let it go with Center Vancouver as a political party name that I had bought just because I think it's a good name, but I think it's a
Yeah,
terrible idea because you're going to split the vote unless it's a strategic thing to kind of get those people together and then negotiate, some kind of play with. But that was something Kevin-Falcon couldn't even do, and then he changed the
right.
name and to BC United and. It's just the NDP are going, thank you very much. Continue. Here's some fun. Here's some money. We'll help you build that party. No doubt some
Right.
of their funders will be people who will be happy to have the right split. Um,
Mhm.
so, I mean,
Because that's going to pull the moderate conservative, is what you think, from
yeah,
the current Conservative Party of BC that has shown itself to be a
exactly.
very large tent,
You
right?
just basically hand the NDP victory forever. What
Right.
what what should have happened and what maybe could happen if the conservatives in the ridings where they know they are unlikely, they don't fit in. Like I look at Yaletown, which probably should have gone. It's center, right? It's a centrist, somewhat right of center, but not conservative. They would have been happy because have voted Hetty Fry, and as I mentioned, like forever. You know, so they want to vote center, but there
Yeah.
was no candidate to vote center in Yaletown, so they didn't vote. They voted NDP. So in those ridings where there's likely a centrist vote that's just not willing to go conservative, then there should be an obvious decision by the conservatives not to run Canada and then do a coalition if in the next election, a
Right.
coalition government where you're different parties, but you're working together, much like the federal Liberals and the NDP have for the last, what, 7 years.
Yeah.
You're sure it's a minority government, but at least you're not NDP spending our billions and billions and billions of dollars and not doing anything, no infrastructure, nothing in our province in now 10 years. At least you'll have a party that understands that. And at this time, I'm, just to jump around a bit because in the Carney and the decision, and we've talked about this, and I've talked about this about how does Canadian prosperity work? Well, it's based on our oil and gas industry for the most part, and this lack of understanding of that for so many years that this is how our economy works. Obviously, that's changed now because of what's happened. And now there's this big movement to, they say renewables as well. They throw that in there. But, basically it's oil and gas and rare, all the stuff that comes from the ground that gives us the ability to
Mining.
healthcare, all,
You might.
all that
Yeah.
stuff. And,
Yeah.
I've
The
talked about
dirty
this,
stuff. The dirty stuff
and I've
that
been
the
talking about this since,
environmentalists hate. Yeah.
exactly. And I've been saying this since I got
Yeah.
elected, first in office to with a beating
Yeah.
down
You're a
from,
terrible man. You hate the earth. You
yeah,
hate our
man, I hate
children.
the earth, but
Yeah.
I'm like,
You hate the earth. You hate our children.
how
Yeah.
do we pay for the poor? How do we build housing? We need the
Yeah.
money, but we can
Yeah.
do it in an ethical way. Anyways, I
Yeah.
don't, maybe, and there's an announcement at 11:30. Maybe the NDP are going to announce something like pipelines and pro this. And because for years they were suing oil and gas companies to not build
Right.
pipelines, suing them, NDP,
Great.
suing
We
oil
only
and
have three
gas
minutes.
companies.
Let's end the
So
NDP rant.
I'd
I
be
got
curious to
you. We
see
only
how
have.
the NDP do in this and it's this dilemma that they are facing.
I love that rant. That was excellent. Ding ding. By-election. Watched
Yes.
horrifyingly from down here. 3 hour lineups. What the hell was that? What the hell was that?
Well, a few things. First, the last time we had the by-election, we had a school board election as well. So we had more people. We assumed there was an assumption at that time that we would have more people voting, and so they ramped up. I think the staff made an assumption there was no school board election. It was only two councillors. It wouldn't be that. It would be the same or less people showing up for a small election. Obviously, that didn't happen. People were excited about this election. They were angry
Because
about
I was gonna
ABC.
say,
But also it was a beautiful sunny day, a lovely
mhm,
day to go out and vote, which always helps. That bumps it up easy 5, 10% right there.
right.
But yeah, basically people, and because it's funny, because it wasn't a lot of information that this was happening. You were here to, it's like, but people showed up and vote, which is great. But hey, it was
because
only
they're pissed.
15%. It was only 15%. But,
Yeah.
so not a
But
lot of people.
that
But
and the outcome of said by-election speaks very loudly.
indeed. First of all, and it's funny because I'm talking to these, 20 somethings, my kids and my friends' kids, first of all, they hate ABC, they hate Ken Sim, all these 20-year-olds,
They
which I
do.
find interesting. And then they
My
also,
17-year-old can't. He's
I
like,
know
oh,
it's so weird. And then they say he's so cringe. And then the other thing was, they really didn't like Colleen Hardwick because they're like, what is she, anti-housing?
no.
What's her deal? Like, what's the deal with
Yeah.
that? And if you looked at the lineups, not scientifically, but the lineups that I was in and other people, so many young people. And so those young people, generally, guess how they vote? They vote generally left wing. So you saw this massive turnout and this massive move towards a far, far left with a communist card carrying. He has said it many times that he's a communist.
It's
And then
wild.
one city
They
who
didn't see that part, I bet.
no, and then yes, he apparently is anti-Semite as has been reported, and that's going through the why that
The
wasn't discovered
posts
before. I mean, the social media posts. This is kind of stuff
are
that probably would have got him like
unbelievable.
the boot, but now he's in council and they have to deal with him. He's denying it, of course, and as you would, but it's
He
good.
said he was being
I believe
sarcastic, but
though.
you read those posts and they are
I know he's a radical.
horrifyingly
He's a radical.
anti-Semitic.
He's a radical, and you know what? Sometimes radicalism in a council, in a politics, to have a radical there gives you a perspective of what, the like
What
find
is out
that
there?
center and
Yeah.
how do we, okay, let's bring it back home here. It provides some sort of perspective. So it'll be interesting. He's certainly gonna be loud.
We've gone over our 30 minutes, but we have to punctuate with Park Board.
Yes.
George,
Short pool, first of all, got approved, getting built. Short pool.
I can't believe it. There's a rumor running around that they're going to redo the community center by Kitsilano High at Connaught Park there and put the long pool there.
That's
Take
not
out green space to put in the long pool and
they
have
can't
the
even.
ice rink above it
That's not going to
in a
happen.
place where there's no parking.
This
It's
park
just
board can't. They've taken 20
it's
years to build this pool. I mean,
it's
whatever.
crazy, but here it gets crazier every time I consider unsubscribing, but I can't. I need to be involved. I get the press release. And now, great news, George. You know what the park board's doing now?
I don't want to know.
They're repurposing the caretaker spaces at our parks, caretaker spaces where people used to live to take care of the parks. And they're going to make them into artist residences.
Residences? Oh, because there were
Like
studios
where
before.
you can do your
Right.
gallery there, you can do your musical performance there. You're the park board. Take
Yeah.
care of the park. Use the money for the parks to make the parks good. Mow the lawns, take care of the
Plant some
rose garden, make
flowers.
sure the trees are fine, make sure that the fencing is right, take down some of those bloody awful signs. I don't know if you've gone through Tatlow Park where they spent millions and millions of dollars to redo the creek and then they realized when it rains really hard that like sewage goes into that creek. They put up these massive signs right along the place that we spent millions of dollars to reclaim, massive signs that say this water is not for recreational use. There are 5 of them,
Oh my
big
God.
yellow signs all the way. I'm just,
The signage. I know I think I've talked about this. There's a rock in the park by my place that's perfect for climbing, and they put a big giant sign that's really long right across it. This rock is not for climbing on. It's like what? Well,
I
okay,
want
whatever.
somebody to take over this park board and I want them to take all the signs down. I want there to be signs at the entrance of every park that says use common sense.
Yeah, it's out of
Everywhere
control.
else on the planet, nobody has signs like this. What are we doing? What are we
It's
doing?
it's
Anyway,
talk
end
about
rant.
performative. It's just to keep them busy, I guess.
You can be found on social media. Go to your Twitter feed because there you've got your, special sign. It's at George.
Underscore.
Affleck at George_Affleck. I'm at jody-vance, Jody with a Y. You can find us all on the social media platforms. And well, you can't really find me on them right now because I've deleted them all off my phone. I will have them back when I get back home. And I will get back home in time to vote. We are taking next week off because you're away.
We might be able to do it early if we can, and then I'm traveling and it'll be questionable whether I can do it, but
Okay.
we'll
I will be
we'll play
available.
it by ear, as it were.
It was my fault that we missed last week because I just unplugged. I needed to lie around by the pool and read a trashy novel, which I did. Peace out, George. Bye-bye.